Oh yeah, we are live. Hello, hello everybody. Bienvenidos, ¿cómo están? Chers, bienvenue sur ma chaîne ici.
Magnifique. C'est vraiment un honneur d'être là. As always, I just love the energy and everything. It's so expansive.
Ah, well, energy, passion. I think we are the two people who always share this. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you everybody for joining us and get settled in. I'm going to say get comfortable, but I actually want to say the opposite, get uncomfortable. Because um, for those of you who may not have joined Shez and I in a conversation previously, we this is not a place for superficiality. This is not a place for fancifulness or niceties. We are here to get deep. We are here to get vulnerable and into the juiciness of today's topic, which is going from pain to pleasure. And this has been such I feel the vulnerability already. This has been such a key theme in our lives, Shez, hasn't
Mm.
it?
100%, as you said.
So I think what do we mean by going from pain to possibility? And
Mm.
the title of this video is, when was a time you did everything you thought you couldn't do?
Mm.
So maybe let's start there. Because the pain we're talking about isn't one that can necessarily be seen on the outside.
Mhm.
And yet it is one that causes us probably, I would say, the most grief and suffering in our own lives.
Mhm. Yeah. Now, as you said, this is very deep. There's so many things that come to mind. Like the journey from pain to possibility is, as you and I have discussed so many times, basically the journey of becoming everything that you once needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we can relate in different way, shape, or form to instances that seemed like, a moment out of time or a stolen instant of grace where something happened and cursed through us, and we did something we didn't see as conceivable. And you and I and everybody from the On Purpose tribe were all about making sure that those moments of grace, they are reiterable, permanent part of your life. And that starts with purpose. So the purpose is the thing that accelerates a lot of your grace. And how do we recognize that in our lives? For me, it's looking back on all the instances where I
Mm.
felt denied and disaffirmed and insecure, and looking to something deep within to face
Mm.
that truth, and then to, as we talked about, the vulnerability piece of it all, and
Mm.
then we surprise ourselves into more affirmation, and it's a scary, beautiful, exciting, vibrant, disquieting, part of our existence, and that's what we're here to do today.
Exactly. So, our goal in this video is for all of you to come away with this, with seeing that some of your lowest lows may have actually been your highest highs. That some of the experiences that you felt the most denied in, whether it was you denied them for yourself, or particularly, I think the general, the denial comes from the external world. So it comes from people, whether it be, the greater society, the way that systems are set up, to even your parents and your close knit circle, that they instilled beliefs in you that you then carried into your own mindset, that is causing limitation, in stopping you from achieving what you want, whether it be, something as I say simple, but as learning a language. I had somebody comment actually on my last video, and they said, oh, I still feel so much, I struggle so much with learning this language, and I don't feel like I'm good enough. There's a
Mm.
reason for that, that you didn't,
Mhm.
it didn't just come from nowhere. And I think the key thing that is important to recognize is, if we all had the full choice, I would say, of wanting to feel powerful or being limited by these pains, I think we would all choose power, right? We would
Mm.
all desire to be the greatest version of ourselves, which for a lot of us, I think, means, having the ability to go after what we desire, having the goals that we have in place, and not being stopped by ourselves. And yet, how many articles Shaz exist on Google? How many videos? How many mentors exist in this world to help people overcome their internal limitations?
Mm,
So it's not your fault that the limitations exist, that, there's intergenerational trauma as well, which we'll get into, which is a big part, I think, of self-discovery, of seeing that some of the things that, or the mindset that you have, some of the limitations didn't actually start with you, and they were
mhm,
not yours for to begin with, but you took the onus upon yourself, whether consciously or subconsciously, to carry them forward. And so, knowing that we have a choice now in this present moment to shift them. And we want to share as well some of the deeper pains that Shaz and I have shifted as well throughout our
mhm.
lives, to show you that it's possible, that you too can transform it, and how to do that, which I think is the big question as well. So Shaz, I want to ask you, when was a time you did everything that you thought you couldn't do?
Mm. Powerful question. I have a specific story in mind. So this one dates back to a few years ago. I was learning Italian, and I recall being in this very social function where I was being introduced to people. And at some point, I bumped into a journalist, and I hadn't understand at first, but he wanted to do a feature with me on national TV, and I froze. So what I did right before, right after he told me that, I managed very stealthily to remove myself from the premises and then to depart from the situation. So I literally removed myself. I run away from,
Mm,
the possibility in that moment. And long story short, he kept in touch with me. Then I happened to do that. And then fast forward to a few years later with my practice and everything, I'm at a place where I'm looking for strategic visibility and opportunities like that. And then I have this blast from the past. So the thing that I used to run away from is the thing that I'm running towards. And that's the kind of moments that you can create for yourself in your life. That's a beautiful indicator of how much you've come into the full circle of
mm,
your own expansion of self. So the thing I resisted the most was the thing that liberated me the most when I truly started to live out my purpose. And it's the thing that became the accelerator. The thing
mm,
with power, it requires you to be fiercely vulnerable, and automatically it makes you, always visible. So when you start to do the thing that was made for you, is when you will be the most seen by yourself and by others.
mm,
And so that was a snippet, of a story. If you look at it, and I had thoughts like of being not enough, of oh my goodness, it's my sixth language. I'm gonna look like so and
mm,
so. And the liveness of the interaction, I felt like it exposed my vulnerability, and I wasn't willing to share it. I wasn't willing to depart from it. For me, my vulnerability was something potentially secret, but ultimately private. And it was a narrative I had construed and embellished to make it so that I would never be vulnerable on purpose, and definitely not in public. And
mm,
now, today, with this conversation, everything else, everything I do is vulnerable. Everything I do is about power. It's not to say that it feels, always like the most affirming experience in the moment,
mm,
but it's a thing that I do that empowers me to do what I didn't think I could.
mm. Whew. Can we just take a pause there? Everything that you essentially once ran away from is a
Yeah.
thing that you now run towards,
Yeah.
because your power was never in the validation of others. It was
Mhm.
never what was expected, what does the status quo say. It was never about the preparation. And I think I can bring out these elements because I know you quite well. But it was never in obtaining more vocabulary in Italian or
Mm.
perfecting your prose. It was all within. And I think one of the biggest realizations that I have had as well in just hearing your story, and I can relate to so much of that, is understanding that my greatness
Mm.
was never something that was meant to actually be quantified.
Mm.
And you are someone that has helped me really realize that as well, of that I will actually potentially never be able to see the impact that I make or the gifts that I truly hold, and maybe it's I'm not meant to. And that allows for me to also create a deeper sense of trust in myself and faith in
Mm.
myself to connect with the unseen.
Mm.
And I think this is something that stops a lot of people, and we've been there, both of us, of trying to look for our purpose or trying to find our power in something that already exists. But no one has
Mm.
ever existed like you have before,
Mhm.
So instead of doing more, which is what kind of I used to do, which I will get into it in a second. But I, through learning to be more, through actually through stopping and observing my own thoughts, this was one of the biggest keys that led me to also transforming my mindset around that. And if I may share my
Please.
story, oh, get ready, people. So, as I was reflecting on this question
Mm.
of when was a time I did everything that I thought I couldn't do, I continuously was tossing up between two examples in my life. And now when I think about it, there's a reason why two came up, because they were in seemingly two different realms of my life, but they had one common denominator, which was
Mm.
me.
Mm.
And you can never split anything in your life, really. Everything is interconnected. So the way that I was showing up, for example, in my studies and in my social life, was also impacting how I showed up in every other realm in my life. And the thing that I think about was, I remember suffering from a lot of anxiety and self-doubt,
Mhm.
which stemmed from my childhood, actually. So at some point in my life, I started to carry this belief that I had to be perfect in
Mm.
order to have worth.
Mhm.
So this started through my grandmother, actually, who had placed these very high expectations on what it meant to be a good child,
Mm.
right? And so, without explicitly ever saying it, if I didn't make my bed, even the smallest things, they seem like really, really tiny details. But if I didn't make my bed the way that she wanted, if I didn't come home the time that she wanted, if I didn't do something that was in her eyes what was right and what was good and what was, essentially perfect, there was
Mhm.
something wrong with me.
Mhm.
And so this is where my inner dialogue started to say, well, my worth must be tied to pleasing other people. So that's what I started to do. And I became really good at school. I got really
Mhm.
great grades. But this was, a downhill spiral, essentially, is the only way to put it. Because what happens then when you don't get a good grade,
Mm.
which inevitably happened?
Mhm.
So the semester that I didn't bring home straight A's, it was, you're not good enough. The comparison to my friends who did get straight A's that semester, what happened to you? Why didn't you get good grades this semester? Is something wrong? And so I implicitly took on this perspective that my life, in order to be happy, was
Mm.
meant to be about other people. How I was, I wasn't given actually any space to explore what it meant to truly be me, to make mistakes, to be a fully fledged human. And so this transpired into my education. And so I did everything that was kind of expected, right? I got a scholarship at
Mm.
16, and yet I never felt calm inside of myself ever.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
remember, like there are so many countless examples, Shez, of just the dialogue that would run in my mind of, you
Mm.
know, when I look at it now, like I think about a key example actually was when it came to presentations at university. And I got an award for my German because I'd gotten the top grades and everything, and yet I was not happy with it because
Mhm.
I didn't get the highest grade.
Mhm. Okay.
And so my go-to mechanism that developed since I was a child, I'm talking like 5, 6 years old, was look for the flaws. You can always be better. You can always improve. Where were you at fault for not being perfect? And so what shifted the first time I ever then did a presentation where I tapped into that one thing that I feared, which was vulnerability, same as you, and showing up without preparation, in the sense of without having spent 3 hours perfecting this one slide, was actually at the polyglot gathering, and there's a
Mm,
video on their channel, and I looked at this presentation
mm,
with so much pride now,
mm,
because this, and ironically, the presentation is about how the quality of your language influences the quality of your life. And so I started to research, how can I shift my mindset? I looked into NLP. I started to change the dialogue that I had with myself. And then, instead of talking the talk, started walking the walk. And
mm,
I marked that presentation as one of the key momentous moments of my life of shifting this. Because on the outside, you may not have realized it, but on the inside, it was a new person speaking to you. And I remember I had a cold on that day. I was a little bit nervous, to be honest, the night
mm,
before, because I thought, what if I lose my voice? And yet
mm,
something in me was like,
mm,
it was like my truest self was finally given a voice
mhm, mhm,
without that looming cloak of, well, what if you mess up? What if no one shows up? What if, the externalities became irrelevant because I switched the focus and I started to focus on me, on being me instead of being what I thought everybody else expected me to be. And so that leads me to giving the answer in the sense of when I became that exact thing that I never thought I could be, of just speaking my mind, of being rejected, of rejecting things that I no longer really wanted, on speaking up with myself, every other area of my life changed.
mhm,
I ended a relationship at that time that wasn't serving me. I moved countries. I started to make cuts in my life, all because my internal dialogue shifted. So this is to highlight really that the power starts within, and it does start with reframing your self-talk,
mm.
essentially.
I love it. I was taking notes as you were talking because it's such a powerful thing. And I wanted to reframe a few of your shares as well. You and I discussed in many different occasions the difference between power and control. And you don't
Mm,
get to have both. And in both of our examples, what really transpires is the minute we departed from the script that we had self imposed onto ourselves to perform belonging, to perform identity, to perform correctness, to
mm,
entertain the gatekeepers, the second we let that go, as you said, we were ready, we were not prepared for the change, for the growth, for the
mhm,
revelation, and something bigger than us was allowed to transpire through us. We were just a conductor of something greater, and those are the moments of flow that we can relate to having experiencing in our own lives. And it's this departure point for, I'm not here to perform identity. I'm not here to try to ingratiate myself with you so that I can bargain belonging, And as you talked, I was thinking that, you know, belonging is a performance when it can be taken away from you. Like your true people won't
mm,
try to bargain your worth for you to belong. And it's part of the what you shared, having to make those cuts or getting to
mhm,
make those cuts as we talked about. And when we fall into the narrative of not enoughness, we're trying oftentimes to outperform ourselves into worth, as you and I have done in many different occasions. And so even when you reach a peak of excellence, it does not equate
mhm,
with a peak of wholeness for yourself. So yeah, just a quick reframings. And the last thing is, as you mentioned before, Conchabuica says, yo sé donde, canto no sé dónde me estás escuchando. So I know
ah,
where where I'm coming from, I am my own point of impact. I
Mhm.
don't know where it lands. And I'm not responsible for how it's perceived, how it's construed, or how it's amplified. Our responsibility as humans is truly to live enough within our beingness so that there's a ripple effect of grace. So when I do me, and again, I lose control to access power in truth and in vulnerability, something is going to shift. I don't know what, but I'm expecting miracles. And we have proof. We have a proven
Mhm.
track record of miracles happening when we unleash the thing that we were trying to contain in ourselves.
Mhm. Exactly. And it really does start with letting go. You have to
Mm,
really be willing to let go and essentially surrender to the unknown. So,
mhm,
what I mean by this is imagine you've held on to this dialogue, to this unconscious mechanism that is deep within, right? Of shifting to blame immediately when something goes wrong, or speaking
mm,
down to yourself, of saying, I'm a
mhm,
failure, I'm not good enough, or anything that is synonymous with those words, then there has to be a sense of, I really don't want to deal with this anymore. I can't live my life like this anymore. And so, for all of you listening, I would say if you can resonate with that, in there is, you know, a way of limitation that you are living by in your life, where you are standing in your own way, like claim it out loud now of, I
mhm,
am ready to become my own point of power. I am ready to let go of all limitations. Because until you claim that, there will always be space for that darkness to linger in, for it to still reside in you and control your life essentially in some way, until you bring the light onto it, until you expose it fully. And I think a lot of that, it ties into shame. I think many of us know that we are standing in our own way to some extent, but there's a lot of shame attached to, or staying hidden,
mhm, mhm,
of not exposing ourselves. And it's, I think, something I've come to realize is, I don't think we fear, you know, rejection, or we actually fear failure, or we fear making mistakes. I think the greatest thing that we fear is our own power,
mm. Yeah.
because it's limitless.
Mhm,
Whereas failure, mistakes can be quantified, right?
mhm,
But your power, well, it's limitless. So it's unknown, it's
mhm,
untangible. And so our brain, naturally, how we work is, our brain likes certainty. It clings on to certainty. It clings on to being able to predict what's going to happen if this happens, or what's going to be the result of this. But the reality is that reality doesn't function that way,
mhm.
right? So I'd love to ask you, Shez, how were you able to shift and transform yourself essentially from this place of anxiety and running away and limitation, and not, and being scared essentially of yourself and of your vulnerability, to now that being the core way of how you operate?
Yeah, I love this. And I would say, in terms of answering it, I have two words: language and body, or bodyfulness, as our friend Maria would say.
Mm,
Instead of trying to intellectualize my way into power, which is where you apply your intelligence to self sabotage, and you have beautiful, powerful ways of being disaffirming to yourself. I started looking more inward into my body. So I'm a very highly somatic being. And in circumstances like this, where I would have that internal dialogue, physically, I had a reaction. I was visceral. So I would feel a contraction, pain, or I would be
mhm,
tensed up. I wouldn't be my expansive self. And even from just my physicality, it collided with the possibility in the room. So a big thing, and we're also sharing this, in a workshop together, it's having exercises of somatic experiencing, and they are tethered to language. So there are words that you speak that automatically generate something visceral in you. And it can
mhm,
be a lie or it can be your truth. And I did the opposite before. I was viscerally reacting to the lies that I used to shield myself against my power and my truth. I am not good enough. I am not this, I am not that. And you internalize something. So even a truth, or an untruth in this case, can hold dominion over your body. And I didn't want to be gelled in by my own mind, my own insanity ever again. So, for example, I ask myself, what do I want to experience right now?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be excited. I want to be exhilarated. I want to be full. I want to be passionate. And even as you vocalize this in different ways, you start feeling the shift internally. And so I would lean into this. And also, as you and I, we love research. Research shows that in regards to your bodily reactions and sensations, one of my coaches talked to me about this, but the reaction that your body registers as fear and as excitement is exactly the same
Mm-hmm.
biology of a mechanism. So the distinction is a word, the distinction is a mindset. So there's a paradigm shift. Your body didn't change, but you did within your bodily intelligence. And wherever I would start looking at fear or nervosity, I chose to look at that as excitement. So, oh, I'm just excited. I just have the jitters because also this matters. And those were things that never denied the fact that I was afraid whilst being excited. And you and I talk
Mm-hmm.
about this, a thing that we are not a segregation. I get to be tired and powerful. And you were one of the only person who taught me this in the last few years, when I would say feel a certain way, you feel that and that. And one reality doesn't deny the other. You get to be powerful at your lowest and at your highest. It's just different. And you don't always need to be, your capacity doesn't need to look full in the same way every day for you to be powered today.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it started with that. There were things I knew I wanted to do because those were the things I was the most afraid of. And I will look to those things and we're going to enact a version of that. And for me to be able to make a commitment and to be true, I would start with my body when the time would come, just to psych myself up, to prime myself for that experiencing, and to start being able to surround her from my body. So I'm coming on
Mm-hmm.
that interview, I have that call, I'm meeting that new collaborator, partner, I'm going at that event, and I feel a certain way about myself. It's like, okay, calmate, un chin. And then it's just you do the exercise. And it's never a lie. So there's always the truth that comes hand in hand with the lie. The lie of I'm not ready comes with the truth of I've done this before. The
Mm-hmm.
lie of I'm not enough comes also from the fact that I've won awards for this, or that I'm loved, or that I'm whole, or that who I am doesn't equate what I do. And my power doesn't reflect my circumstances. So when you look at that, it never denies how you feel, it affirms who you are. And that's how I started doing it. And it's intoxicating. The fear is still there, but now it's flourishing alongside other feelings as well. Grace, gratefulness, power, truth, stillness. It all comes together and it just enhances the whole experience. If we weren't
Mm-hmm.
afraid, we wouldn't do half the things that we do. We wouldn't be half as powerful because nothing would be at stakes. There would be nothing to lose, nothing to release, nothing to gain. So yeah, so that's how I would say my process is gone.
Uh, what do you add to that? I think that actually sums up really perfectly what our workshop is about. We
Yes.
have an upcoming workshop on Saturday, and it's called How to Uncover Your Purpose Through Language, right? And the I guess the irony is that we're not just talking about language from the perspective of words and the mind, which is what a lot of I would say experts in the field kind of tend to focus on, is when you look at, for example, neurolinguistic programming, which I personally am a big fan of. I think the fallacy that you can fall into is believing that this one tool, this one area is the be all end all of how you're going to reprogram your limitations, right? Or your mind. And this is where I got really stuck for a long time of focusing too much on this, right? And so this is why in the workshop, what we're doing is we're taking you through a whole somatic experience for 2 hours for you to connect, especially if you've never truly explored your body in that way and the language of your body, the language of your own energy, then this is going to be a phenomenal transformational experience because language isn't just words. It's not just a accumulation of letters and sounds and used for communication. Your body communicates, and actually, your body communicates a lot quicker and a lot more effectively than your words do. Because think about it this way. I'm sure that you've heard of the fact that about 80% of our communication is nonverbal communication. And what is easier to control or influence? I'm going to use the word influence. Let's say you are anxious, right? You've got a big presentation come up, you're running late, there's something going on in your body. The heart palpitations, your nerves are, your hands are jittery because of your nerves. You might have a bit of a red face because you're rushing, your breathing accelerates. And now you try to tell yourself, just calm down. It's all good. Is that going to be as effective as tapping into your breath for a couple of minutes, as calming your body temperature down? No. So it is a lot easier to influence your state through your body than it is to influence it through your mind. And as you were talking about the the emotions that came up, of the physical realization that both nervousness or fear and anxiety and excitement are the way that they are produced and show up in your body is exactly the same. So that means that somewhere here we convert that experience, right? And for anybody who knows the book How Emotions Are Made, this explains it brilliantly. But essentially, all of our wording and languaging of our environment comes from the frames that we have created for those things. So my frame actually, Shez, for excitement is not the same as yours. So the way that I describe excitement, or what I feel and what I see when I hear the word excitement, is not the same as yours, because we had very different experiences, and each and every one of us in this whole planet has that. Of where we saw what was defined as excitement is very unique to each and every one of us. And so this is where you get to draw power from as well, in first looking at, well, what frames have I put around these particular words in my life? And so public speaking being a great example. Unfortunately, many people saw either their parents or family members or schoolmates or whatever, when it came to public speaking, the words fear were used, judgment, anxiety, you name it. And so this created a frame that now created a narrative in your mind of what this means, what the consequences of this are. And so what we, as Shez said, have both experienced in our lives and are now teaching, is how to use your whole system, all of your faculties, to reconstruct those words and those limitations and those narratives to create one of power and possibility. And I think of, for me, just this one word, and, that you mentioned was the biggest thing. I can be nervous and excited. I can be, powerful and tired. Like, all of the things that you think are separate can actually be in one experience, because that is the truth of the matter, right? Like, how we live our lives, like, we can go through so many different emotions in one day, or you can suddenly go from being sad to happy to ecstatic, whatever it may be. It's never this or that. And also redefining your limitations, or the experiences that you think in your life were your lowest of lows. There is always power in them. And sometimes all it takes is reframing. And I think if I may share, one of the biggest kind of trigger words that I created for myself was, why not me? So very often my mind would run to kind of thinking, well, if I had, here's a brilliant example. I was invited to teach a full 1.5 hour kind of session online in Portuguese. And at this point, I'd probably been learning Portuguese for a year and a half or so. Immediately, the thoughts that came in were, why me? I'm going to mess up. I'm not prepared enough. I need this, I need that, I need that. And I stopped and I paused and I said, why not me? And when you ask yourself a question, your brain undeniably is going to search for an answer. So by asking better questions, you get better answers, right? So by asking this
Mm-hmm.
question, why not me?
Mm-hmm.
My brain was now looking for all of the answers for why not me to give this presentation. And you can be rest assured it found those answers because that was the trajectory I set it in of,
Mm.
you're fantastic. You put so much effort into this. You're human. People relate to you. Like all these answers started coming. Whereas if I stuck to that initial question of, oh, why me?
Mm.
Is, it was coming from a place energetically of limitation. So of course my mind then is going to look for limitation.
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself is was paired with the fact that I, you know, had taken the time to build up a practice of essentially being with myself as well, and
Mm-hmm.
sitting still. And like you talked about, of, it starts with the body. So when you get to know your body more and you get to know the language of your body, then you can also now align what's going on physically with your mental representation of it.
Yeah, I love that because, as you said, I can think of instances where I created a collision course between my body and my mind.
Mm,
And what we're here to do is to use the two together to accelerate you and your purpose so that your bodily experience of pain is also synonymous with your bodily experience of pleasure, because the distance between pleasure and pain is shorter than we're led to believe oftentimes. And then whatever is going on in the inner world that your mind is fabricating, that also accelerates everything. And in the workshop we look at how one enhances the other, and based on who you are, as Lena was saying, we each have our own individual access point to our own
mhm,
becoming. So, and we invite you to always, trust the intelligence within, adapt it, shift it, pivot it so that it feels true. It feels like, as you said in your previous video, it feels like you're coming home to yourself.
ujú, ujú. ¿Y qué significa eso? Ese también es un buen ejemplo de cómo usar los idiomas, ¿no?
Sí.
De cambiar tu perspectiva. Y yo siempre digo, ¿no? Para la gente que, por ejemplo, cuando yo tengo mis clientes, ¿no? Que están aprendiendo un nuevo idioma y ellos vienen y dicen, ay, pero mira, Lina, yo no sé cómo decir eso. Yo quiero decir eso en inglés, pero no sé cómo traducirlo, ¿no?
Mm-hmm.
Y yo digo, ¿por qué quieres traducirlo? ¿Por qué no puedes inventar tu propia manera de
Mm-hmm.
expresar tu identidad de la forma o de una manera que tal vez no existe en una otra lengua, ¿no?
Sí.
Y eso también bueno, una razón porque a mí me encantan los idiomas, ¿no? Es que debido al alemán, por ejemplo, o a los otros idiomas que había aprendido, que yo descubrí partes de mí misma, o
Mm-hmm.
yo tenía la oportunidad de descubrir partes de mi identidad que tal vez el inglés o las otras situaciones en mi vida no me permitieron hacer eso. Entonces, como ustedes ahora tal vez pueden sentirlo, even if you can't understand what I'm saying, there's an element of translanguaging also,
Mm. Yes.
of translanguaging energy, where you can now maybe
Mm.
feel what I'm saying without even understanding what I'm saying.
Yes. También cuando tú estabas hablando acerca de eso, para mí es decir que podemos ya oler como diferentes partes de nuestra capacidad para hacernos lo que jamás hubimos sido.
Mm-hmm.
Y a la hora de demasiado aferrarse a definiciones, convencionalismos y decir, ¿por qué no puedo ya establecer algo de comparación? Es decir, que se ha de presumir, de pretender que cualquier alternativa no estuviera bastante para que yo
Mm-hmm.
pudiera decir lo que se me toca decir. So, as you said, I feel the gift of translanguaging. That should be its own show, its own
Oh, the
translanguaging
next video.
energy. Yes. And that's so true. And that's the gift of language, is
Mm.
that you get to become a poet, truly. And what you allow yourself to become in one part of your linguistic experience, it
Mm-hmm.
translates across everything else. So when I give myself freedom, as I would say in Spanish, to soltarme, to let
Mm-hmm.
go, I cannot go back to English and speak or let alone think the same way, because the translanguaging energy is a shift in paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, again, going back to belonging, performing identity, there's a pressure to conform to a
Mm-hmm.
preconceived notion of what makes you ideologically legitimate as a speaker, as a thinker, as a human. And for you, it's the license actually to be more than convention and to dare wholeness. So when you go here and you talk about, you create those new expressions, you're leveraging different parts of your brain, opening up different parts of your consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
establishing different opportunities for purpose and growth, and you
Mm-hmm.
surprise yourself with your capacity to be more through your self expression. That's a gift, that's a revolution, that's a revelation. And language can be that for you. So when you say
Mm-hmm.
something and you cannot predict what you're going to say, but you can predict the impact you're about to generate, that's
Mm-hmm.
liberation right there. And language is such a beautiful vessel. In Spanish and in a different event, Peter was there, and we were speaking in different languages. He didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand the words, he got the energy. And there are so many instances where we understand the words, but there's no energy. And like Concha would say, hay estrellas que sí lucen, pero no dan calor. And I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be that. I don't want to be a star that radiates but gives you no warmth. And you get to be and to do both through language as part of your purpose.
All I can say is, language learners, listen up to this right here. Listen up, listen to this. Listen to this right here. Man, can I just say, like, this honestly relates to my greatest why in this world of transcending the expectations, the limitations that other people and society has placed upon me and others before me,
Mm,
and others and places still to this day upon others continuously. Because one of the biggest problems that I see in when I read my comments, when I see videos, and when I see people that I have worked with, and when I think about myself as well previously, is that what has been constructed to mean being a speaker of a language or dominar un idioma, no, to
mm,
dominate and to be fluent in a language, has very little to do with your own personal experience,
mm,
the uniqueness of you as an individual. And so what happens is, when you don't speak or when you don't tick a checkbox, you are then seen as, well, you're not fluent, you're not a speaker. When you have your own modality of expression, you have your own modality of learning, if you do not fit into a criteria, if you do not fit into being able to talk about this under the CEFR of the A1, the A2, whatever, then you are seen as being less than.
mhm,
And this is what we want to recreate as well, and what Shez and I do. And this is like, you inspired me, Shez, honestly, to actually think deeper and live deeper in this, of understanding that I don't have to carry across the limitations into other languages, that
mm,
I get to actually ask myself, before I ask the question of, well, what does it mean to be fluent? What does it mean to, you know, be recognized by other people as having validity in this language? No. How do I actually want to feel when I'm speaking this language? How do
mhm,
I want to
mhm.
show up? And this is a huge shift. Instead of
Yeah.
asking yourself in any realm of life, you know, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? You know, what do I want to achieve? Ask yourself, how do I want to feel
Mm,
in doing this? How do I want to show up? And
mhm,
this honestly shifted the way that my confidence shone through, because
mm,
I used to equate confidence with, you know, exactly that, with how many external factors can I abide by?
mm,
You know, how many people can I impress on this stage? But the key was, I never thought about, how can I actually impress myself, of shifting it. And
mhm,
recognize then that my confidence that you may see as well when I speak other languages or whatever actually has nothing to do with now avoiding mistakes. And sometimes I make them even intentionally because I'm learning through
Mm, yes.
through making them. I'm like, you know what, let me just say this word and see how what the reaction is or how do I feel about it. My confidence comes from knowing that I am not all knowing, that I am not perfect, and that I trust myself. I think this is the biggest thing, that when you build up self trust and self understanding, that is where your confidence lies. Entonces, no importa si empiezas a aprender el español oder wenn du Deutsch lernen möchtest oder was auch immer, like it doesn't matter which language you shift into, until you can work on those inner beliefs and essentially shifting your view on how you want to approach these situations in your life, they will be carried into however many languages you decide to learn or speak or whatever you decide to do in your life. And this is, I cannot underline this enough, because as you said, Shez, so brilliantly, there are many people that technically dominate a language, and yet you will they it doesn't mean that they understand you or that understanding is created. So,
No,
which one do you want to take? Which road do you want to take?
exactly. And I feel it's like the difference between performance of power, cosmetics of power, and depth of power. And there are instances you're going to be your most powerful, but you won't be seen as such. Maybe it's because your seed was being planted. Maybe it's because you are in a room that's testing you to look back to what you would have done to see if you're going to show up as who you are. Like there's so many variations of power. It doesn't always feel graceful or gracious, but when you emerge on the flip side of that interaction, there's so much that you've gained from having, as we've said before, surrendered to your highest truth. And for me, as Lena was talking about, I think of different languages, they each carry a part of, my transitioning into more of myself.
Mm,
So let's say with Haitian Creole, I self-taught myself that, and to this day, there are people, the second they hear something about you, no matter what you're going to say, they're going to play you against the stereotype that they have prefabricated. And I've had instances where I would be on the phone with folks and they thought I was quote unquote native. Then I show up and they're
mm,
confused. You
mm,
don't look like what you sound, right? And I've had that in my own family and community. And the thing is, for me, it's a gift to myself. Liza Nichols talks about when you go back to your bed in the dark of night and you look at who you chose to be in that day, would you be happy if you were to be whisked away in the other plane of existence with who you showed up as today? And for me,
mm,
that's a kind of power. Power is a choice, it's an intention I'm setting. I chose to let myself go. I chose to be free. I chose to surrender and to higher power. And it's going to feel uncomfortable and it's going to help you be more truthful. And you don't want to bargain belonging, you don't want to bargain identity, you don't want to bargain validity, because or else there's always going to be something outside of you that can dictate the totality of you. And for me, that's what happened with Crow. No matter what I say, there's always going to be something, someone saying something. N'importe qui sa mwen map vin, ou kompon pou m vin distile nan jodi a to kon sa, pral gen, on ko ken chen krisi van kat vin le, to kou bla yu ko yo, voye monte tout ton chikriti lo be souen. But the thing is, I'm here for me. And I know what
mm,
it took me to get here. I know the cost of my transitioning because it was an investment into my becoming. So I'm not here to be seen by you. I'm here to be affirmed by the visibility my power produces on purpose every day. And it's going to be uncomfortable. And we choose to make mistakes because we choose to try something new. How much can I stretch my poetry before I
mm-hmm.
find more of it? I've never used that expression. I've never heard this. And sometimes, as you said, Lena, I'm testing myself and my surroundings. If I care too much what they think about me, am I allowing myself to be? So I'm going to make that mistakes to remind myself of who I am, irrespective of who I'm with.
Mm. Exatamente, querida. Exatamente. I loved. Oh, when you started speaking Creole, I had goosebumps. I had goosebumps. For for you who is listening to this right now, and you resonate with craving and desiring to have the key point of power stem from within you, and you are sick and tired of showing up to spaces caring too much about the judgment of others, if you fear being rejected by others, or live in a state of self doubt and limitation, then I highly, highly invite you. This is our personal invitation to you to join us in this workshop on Saturday. The link is below in the description box because, as you can see and hear and hopefully feel, Shez and I have walked this walk
Hmm.
of transforming all of the things that were set to for our denial, for us to not believe in ourselves and be confident in what we are, and to go after the impact that we seek to have to create in this world and the vision that we seek to have in this world, to still feel the fear and do it anyway. Come to this workshop. You will not be disappointed.
Beautiful.
So Shez and I would also like to share a little bit of an insight. If you're on the fence and you're like, oh, well, what is this workshop? Can you share a bit of an insight, Shez?
Yes. Let me see. I want to share screen. Let me see. Boom. Perfect. Perfect. Can you see my screen?
No, first. Oh, yes. Hold on 1 second.
Amazing.
Yes, we got it.
Yeah. Perfect. So we wanted to give you a feel of what's to come. And the way that we've designed everything, as we've shared with you, is that we have specific exercises that tie into language and body, and to share ways that you can activate them to reprogram your thinking and enhance, your experience of your own power and purpose. And we have created this companion workbook for you as well. You'll be prompted to use it in session and to carry it forward after, and we just wanted you to get a sense of what it contains and how you can use it. So when we break it down, it opens up with this 9-day accelerate your purpose challenge. So right after the session itself, we've taken a lot of the beautiful knowledges that got co-created, and we empowered you to break it down into one new reframing and shifting your paradigm, and then one specific task and action that comes with that, so that you elevate your thinking, but also practice and reinforce it through constant practical integration. And this is a snippet. There's more about the challenge that's going to come. And then we share more resources, exclusive soundtracks to help you tap into your body, and so many other beautiful things. And, it just goes on, pages to take notes, and also different prompts that are related to specific exercises. But this is, just the beginning, so that you can get a sense of what this is going to be like. And we have amazing, powerful, activities, and we can't wait to see you all there. So this is, let's say the snippet for right now for today.
Yes, exactly. So this is really an experience. This is not going to be a workshop where you are sitting there and you're watching a video or you are watching a masterclass in the sense of you're passive. From the minute that you step into the space, there is going to be music. We are starting off with an activity, a full somatic experience, so that by the end of this workshop, as Shez just showed in the workbook, you're going to come away with practical tools that you can immediately apply, that will help you once you've identified, for example, and eliminated these limitations to your growth, that you actually now have tools for further integration. Because I think a lot of the time, when we attend a sort of workshop or a masterclass, in that session, it's all hyper energy and we're super motivated. But what's next? You're kind of
Mm-hmm.
left hanging. And so we know as well as anybody that these things take time to shift as well. And so in this workshop, we want to provide you, as I said, with a full body experience, tapping into the body, tapping into your emotions, to then relanguaging certain parts of your life's narrative, eliminating limiting beliefs, having then an experience with other people. So there are going to be breakout rooms, sharing. We're going to challenge you a little bit or a lot, And then the beautiful thing is, it doesn't just end there. So, from this experience, you also gain access to a challenge, which Shez just shared as well, where we are going to also be helping you to integrate these steps into your life. And with the community support of other people that are going to be tagging themselves in the challenge and also taking part. And then 30 days afterwards, we're going to offer an exclusive mastermind as well. So you'll get to join us again. You'll get to join the beautiful people that took part as well, and solidify even further these changes, these shifts and transformations that have happened, and explore for yourself personally what that actually means, and gain help from us as your guides in this journey.
Okay. Yeah, because, just because we know better doesn't mean we always do. And what we love is to walk the talk with you. So we do it in session, we do it post session. And then when we reconvene together through the mastermind, it's really to elevate you so that we can look at integration and reinforce your truth.
Exactly. So do check out the link below and register for the workshop that's happening this Saturday. It is in the description box of this video. And if you have any questions, send us a message. You'll also find the links here. But I have to say, places for this workshop are going to be limited because it is live. We really want to ensure that we can give our energy to holding the space and
Mhm.
supporting you. So don't wait until Friday night at midnight to make this decision, because it essentially starts even before the workshop. So register now, click the link below, and thank you, everybody, for being here with us, for sharing in our energy. Thank you, Shez. I am so excited for Saturday. And any last words?
Wow. Any last word? I think, this is a beautiful way to start your year or to restart your year. And, looking at language and body as two different access points to the same finality, your purpose and your destiny. So we're here, we're doing it with you. And I really encourage you to do that, to invest in yourself and to make your dream incontrovertible. We negotiate a lot of things in our lives, but who we are and what we're meant to do and accomplish shouldn't be part of that negotiation system. So come, it's going to be beautiful, empowering, impactful, multilingual, fluid, real, and all about wholeness.
Exactly. So take the step, join us on Saturday. You won't regret it. So thank you so much, Shaz, as well. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Merci beaucoup. Muchas gracias. Baltias of the languages. And we will be seeing you on Saturday.
Yes.
See you there.